I'm sure more people are coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started with our do now. So thank you for those of you who've already sorted your piles. We're going to review how to combine independent clauses before we start the bulk of today's lessons. And what I did this time, because I know yesterday we were struggling to kind of know which colors to go in with which clauses. And so I color-coded the formulas up on the board. So you'll notice, like strategy 2, which is combining with coordinating conjunctions, the fanboys are in blue. So you're going to use a blue fanboy. And remember, it's a puzzle, so they fit together just so. So why don't you go ahead and see if you can find the 5 pairs using the 5 strategies just like we did yesterday. And make sure your phones are away, please. You will not be needing them at all during class today, so you can put them away.
Not really. I'm just kind of looking.
I remember this from yesterday.
These are different,
No.
different clauses. So now why don't you just flip around and work with this group. Good, strategy 1.
So these are the IC
And when you think you have it, just raise your hand. That is speedy, group.
Yep, that was.
All right, we've got. Did you actually match the clauses?
Yeah.
Okay. So strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3, strategy 4, strategy 5. Very nice. What I want you to do to practice while you're waiting for the other groups is I want you, because the more you can get used to understanding what types of words are subordinating conjunctions, which ones are transitions, the better you're going to be on your quiz. I want you to see if you can swap out. Like, so what other words would work for 3? What other words would work for 4? Swap some out.
I see transition.
It's a good strategy 1. Good morning, Kaden.
Put a comma before.
Kaden, you'll notice that there's some formulas on the board to help this time. Why don't you wait a few minutes?
They're because of certain years.
Because I took notes on the test.
Are 2 and 3 complete in your mind? Have you done strategies 2 and 3?
We brought punctuation.
Some punctuation. So what do we need to add to 2?
2 needs a comma before.
Very good.
And then semicolon.
Nice.
And the a comma after.
Very good. Punctuation matters. Blake, you weren't here yesterday, so just make sure that this is making sense to you. We're just practicing the 5 strategies. Be engaged in the process. Yes. You almost have them all. You have an error with your strategy 3. Who sees the error with strategy 3?
Forgot a comma.
Okay, good. You think you're done? 2, 3, 4, 5. Very nice. What I would suggest you do as you wait for other groups to finish is try to get used to what types of words are here, because that's going to help you on the quiz. So like, what other red words would work for strategy 3? And what other green words would work for strategies 4 and 5? And just kind of see if you can swap words out so they get used to the different types of words. Good, we're almost all there. I've been telling groups this, but if you're finishing early, practice swapping out different types of words so you can get used to those words. What other pink words could you use? What other blue words could you use? How are we doing over here? Good. Okay, Temps, we're going to get off our phone, please. Okay, so I see your strategy 2. I see that the air conditioning thing is blowing them all around. Here's your 3. There's your 1. Okay, your strategy number 4 has an error. Who can find it? Well, that's what strategy 5 is. What do we need to do, sorry, to strategy 4? Nope, that's strategy 5. Look at strategy 4. What is missing when you look at the board? There you go. Nice. We're going to keep our phone away. Caden, we're going to have our phone away completely today. Connor, we're going to have our phone completely away. All right, I think every group has it. Does anyone have any questions? Anything we would need to go over? Do you remember when your quiz is?
Tomorrow.
No, next week.
No, next week. Remember we decided we're going to move it to second semester, so it's going to be on the first day of second semester. It's like a great way to start semester 2, right? Okay, we'll keep practicing with these. I'm already seeing a ton of improvement from yesterday. So go ahead and put everything back in the bag. Thank you so much. Yeah, please don't.
Is that a microphone too?
It is a microphone. Yes. It is a regular schedule today, yes.
Tomorrow do we have
Tomorrow's a 45-minute homeroom, yes.
what?
And also for grad check, make sure you're on progress to graduate
Is
on
it
time.
bike time so we could like go to other classes? Or?
No, it's a homeroom. Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. If I could get your full attention up here to the board, let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. So today is the very first day of the next unit, which is going to be on writing a persuasive speech. And we're going to spend the whole day today talking about what the learning target is going to be for this unit. And you might be wondering, like, why in the world would we spend an entire day talking about something that really isn't going to matter until the assessment in 2 months, right? Like, why are we talking about it now? And I want you to just imagine for a moment that I told you that you have an interview and it's really important. And that's all I said. Like, what kind of questions would you have? If I said, yeah, you've got a really important interview. Like, what would be the natural questions?
What job am I interviewing for?
What job am I interviewing for? What else? What else would you need to know? Where is it? What time is it? That's a really good question to know in going for an interview, right? Because you need to know how to prepare for that interview. It would also be really unfair if I were to say, hey, your dream job is coming up and the interview starts in 5 minutes. Like, that's not fair either. You need time to really process through what's going to be expected of me and what's the path I'm going to take to get there. Because some of you might need a little extra work in some areas of this unit, and some of you might need to extend yourselves in areas of this unit. And so knowing that ahead of time means that as we go through the unit, everything we do, you can kind of see where we're heading. We have that vision in mind. So that is why we're spending a whole day, day and a half talking about what is the learning target for this unit. So without further ado, up on the board, I have our learning target for this unit. So I want everyone to look at the learning target as I read it aloud. I can write and deliver an effective persuasive speech that uses both an argumentative structure and a persuasive style. What I'd like you to do is have your heads together, table talk. What does that mean? So what do you anticipate we're going to be doing this unit? What does that mean? Someone from your group will share, so make sure that everyone in your group knows or has an answer. Okay, go. What does it mean? Y'all have an answer?
Kind of, isn't it
Kind
just
of?
like, it sounds like we're going to be writing an essay, which you already told us, but it means
But what's different about this than an essay?
that you have to persuade the reader to take your side.
Okay. 10 more seconds. Guess I have the sticks.
What are you wanting us to like?
Oh, sorry. I forgot to advance it. There you go. What does it mean? All right. This one it could be pretty straightforward, but that's okay. Sometimes it's just really helpful to put it into our own words because you just kind of like might tune it out unless you're really thinking about what does it mean. So number ones, you all know who you are, right? Number ones. If you don't have a number one, solve the problem. Joshua. I'm actually going to have you stand up this time. Stand up. Number one, stand up.
Come on, Robbie.
All right. Once you have shared, you just get to sit back down. So we're going to we're going to flip around the room. Once you've shared, you can sit down. It's okay if we repeat ourselves. Just what does this learning target mean? Jaden?
To effectively persuade somebody about a topic.
Okay, thanks.
New techniques of writing a persuasion essay.
Say that one more time, a little louder.
New techniques about writing persuasion.
Okay, thank you.
Learning how to kind of have a bias but see both sides.
Okay, thank you. Ron?
New techniques, learning how to write persuasive essay.
Okay, thank you. Tony?
New ways to write.
Okay, thanks.
Being able to persuade your reader to believe your side.
Okay, nice. Josh?
To learn how to write a persuasive speech.
Thank you.
Just a well-structured persuasive speech.
Well-structured persuasive speech. Thanks, Brindy.
Professional in giving speech.
Okay, thank you. Something I really appreciated that most groups touched on is new skills and how we're going to be writing a persuasive speech. So I'm hoping that by the end of this unit, you'll have some nice strategies that are really concrete that you can use to help you be more persuasive in your writing. And I did want to make sure, because some of the groups missed it, this is not a persuasive essay. This is a persuasive speech. So that's a really important part. And a lot of you talked about writing it, but what else is going to happen?
Speaking.
You're going to be delivering it. Okay, so again, something that's going to happen in about a month and a half from now, so you don't need to start getting nervous yet, but that is going to be a component of this unit. All right, I have a more important question for you. And the question is this. Why is this learning how to write a persuasive speech or learning how to be persuasive, how is that important to your future success? And as a group, you could either talk about academics, you could talk about career, you could talk about just being a human being. Why is that an important learning target? Go, talk. Brindy. How you doing today? You look a little tired. Hanging in there? Good. All right, 10 seconds. Five, four, three. Shh. Number 2, stand up. You don't have a 2, solve that problem.
Why is the learning target important for the success of your future?
Okay? Please be good listeners and make sure you can, that you're listening to these reasons why. Because the why is really important. Like, don't ever just learn something to learn it. Like, think about why it's important. Sierra?
To persuade someone to hire you at a job.
Okay, like a job interview kind of situation. Nice. Kylie?
It's just a good skill to have.
Why?
Because, like in college and stuff, you're going to have to speak out in front of other people.
For sure. I will tell you, in college, being able to write persuasively and being able to use language effectively really helps in all areas of study. So it helps you kind of, college professors believe a little bit more of what you have to say. Noah?
Persuade people, convince people that you are correct.
Why is that important?
So you can get jobs or win arguments, which is a plus.
Winning arguments plus. Okay. Lucas?
I was going to say to persuade people, but that's what you just said.
Okay, speak up a little louder.
To persuade people.
Okay. Megan?
To share your own opinions and like show other people what you're thinking.
Okay, thank you.
Helps me develop more people skills.
People skills. Like what? What do you mean? It's a great one.
Many people are job interviews.
I like creating a good impression on new people. Nice, thank you. What do you think? To form your own opinion? Nice, thanks. Naomi?
So that like you can have your own opinion, but like you know how to like view other opinions with an open mind too.
Okay, thank you.
Be
Alex?
more comfortable speaking in front of people.
Yeah, that's really important. When I was in high school, I was one of those who, I know some of you are like this. I was terrified to speak in front of people. I'd get like blotchy red. But the more I did it, to Alex's point, the more comfortable I've become speaking in front of people. Let me tell you why I think this learning target is important. Knowing how to use language purposefully will help you become a better advocate for yourself and for others. And this is actually what really made me want to be an English teacher, because I think I've shared this with you, but I was a fisheries major for a lot of college. I studied fish. I dissected fish for like hours a day. It's great. For those of you who want to go into fisheries, it's wonderful. But it wasn't what I wanted. And so when I moved into English, what I learned was the power that language has in giving me a voice to express myself. And so that's what I'm passionate about, is I'm passionate about teaching skills that will help you also have a voice. Because language is powerful, and people listen to those who are able to use language well. Okay? So we're going to learn some really great strategies for you to be able to do that. Everyone has a sheet of paper on their desk, and it says key terms. Would you grab it? Yes. Thank you, thank you. All right. Throughout this unit, we are going to learn a couple different key terms. And the first one we are going to learn is called rhetoric. So will you please, in the left-hand column, will you write this word, rhetoric? Evan, do you need one? Here you go. Rhetoric. Thank you. Grab this chair. So question, how many of you have heard the word rhetoric? Can you raise your hand if you have heard that word? Maybe you don't really know what it means, but just you've heard the word rhetoric. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 have heard the word rhetoric, which means that approximately 20 of you, and we're not all here today, so about 17 of you have not heard the word rhetoric. And a lot of you, I heard a lot of you say, well, I know what rhetorical is, and so keep that in mind, because there is a relationship between rhetoric and rhetorical. I would like you in your groups to make a prediction and write it down in your chart about what you think rhetoric means. And here's the great thing about a prediction. Predictions can have a wrong answer, but a prediction in and of itself cannot be wrong because it's a prediction. So just make a prediction. Maybe if you've heard the word rhetorical, you can think about what rhetoric might mean in light of that. But be prepared to share your prediction and how you arrived at that prediction. Go.
She's in the bathroom. She doesn't feel good, but she'll be here soon.
Okay,
I'm just letting you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We're just saying it.
So we're writing our prediction down.
I don't know.
So you could always make a prediction just based on the fact that you know we're going to be talking about persuasion, right? So keep it in context of, well, probably has something to do with persuasion. Okay. Noah, please write down your prediction. Chance, write down your prediction, please. And you can use your group's prediction.
I don't have a pencil.
You don't have a pencil. Thank you.
I'm gonna write that down just so I can see.
Just write it down. It doesn't matter if it's right, if it's wrong. It's just a prediction. I see some really great predictions. Make sure you get it on paper, Ron.
Yeah, I was just looking for another pencil.
Writing utensil, it's important.
I should definitely know. I know what a rhetorical question. I didn't do my AP.
So just use that. Like, okay, what is a rhetorical question?
I don't know how to explain it. It's like you're asking a question that's not meant to like answer it. You know?
Okay.
You know, is that
A question.
Yeah, that's totally the definition of rhetorical question. So that could be your prediction, that it has something to do with not being answered, something that's not answered. That would be a fine prediction. Okay, about 10 seconds. What are you drinking today?
Red Bull, raspberry,
Except the Red Bull. All right, 5, 4, 3. Shh. Fours, will you stand up? She can sit. That seems fair to me. All right. So, you will share your prediction and why you came up with that prediction. So, Blake, we're going to start with you.
It happens more than once, and that sounds the most right to me.
Okay, so your prediction is it means happens more than once?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Here's what no, you can just write your own prediction. Okay. All right, Catherine?
Something, like the purpose of understanding something or persuading someone or something.
Okay, thank you. And how did you arrive at that?
I guess we were thinking of, the word rhetorical, like rhetorical question.
Okay.
So when you're,
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
We put a question on every answer or something that starts an idea.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan?
We would put like a word that means the opposite of its original meaning.
Okay, thank you.
I just said that was a way of writing.
Thank you, thank you. Hayden? Okay. Shh. Question that cannot be answered. Connor?
When you ask a question, you know someone knows the answer to, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Carter?
A question used to further your point.
And Stephanie?
A question that can be answered with good understanding.
I know. I will fix it. Thank you for telling me that, Ron. Okay. Those are great questions. I'm noticing that a lot of you are keying in on the thing that you know, which is a great way to make a prediction. You're keying in on the rhetorical question part of it. Okay. By the end of class today, I will have a definition for you for rhetoric. So we're going to kind of put that aside for just a moment. And actually, I forgot to do something with step 1. Have you ever read a book? Oh, please, let me finish my question. No. Have you ever read a book and you've seen a word listed a lot of different times, and then you go to say that word out loud and and you can't quite get it out of your mouth because you've never actually said the word? Has that happened to you?
Never happened to me. I said every
Okay.
single word, that's all.
We're going to actually practice saying the word rhetoric. Rhetoric. So say rhetoric. Rhetoric. Say rhetoric to the person sitting next to you. Rhetoric. Whisper the word rhetoric. Now say rhetoric like you're going to a tea party with your 100-year-old great-grandma. Rhetoric. Rhetoric. Okay, good. Thank you. What? All right. All right. So, thank you for playing along with that. By the end of class today, you will have a definition for rhetoric. So we're going to put that aside for a moment. Put your charts aside. And we're going to think back. We're going to think back to earlier this year when we did the American Dream essay. And that was an argumentative essay. And what I would like you to do in your groups, because all of the stuff we did in that argumentative essay with the American Dream, all of that is going to come into play in your persuasive speech. So we're building on what we already have learned, and we're going to add a layer to it. What I want you to do in your groups is I want you to make a list on the Post-it on your table of everything you remember about good argumentative writing. So for example, we spent some time talking about a hook and how good arguments have a hook in them. And so hook would be something you would put on your list. Will you please make a list of everything you remember about good argumentative writing on your Post-it? Go.
The opponent's side, or the
Let's just get a little bit closer so you can see the Post-it.
Did you say like a thesis? Maybe? Or is that count? Like the hook. And then like
A thesis is saying,
like what?
reputation.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing to have in your essay. You are aiming for a list of about 8 items.
Paragraphs. Grammar.
What's the first one? There's something on the rebuttal.
Rebuttal word.
Like this spell is half the things on here, right? Is that spelling?
It's crunchy.
You're writing something that
This either what's it called when you're like stating the opposite side and then you have a rebuttal to back it up.
You have a concession and a refutation, and both of those together make the counterclaim. Does that make sense? So counterclaim would be fine. Is that what you were going to say, Ron? Yeah. I could tell that was like about to come out.
Yeah, I didn't come with that at all.
Oh.
Okay, take one more minute to see if you can get 2 more things on your list.
Oh, what?
Do you have a good list?
You have a great list.
Yeah, you have a great list. That's good.
No, it's great.
What's that?
No, it's great.
That's great. Ten seconds. Five, four, three. Okay. Will you please give your list to the 3s and 4s stand up? No, sorry, I've said that backwards. Give your list to the 4, 3s stand up.
No matter what you're standing. Pretend like someone can see us.
Okay, so 4's your job, because we're going to share these out loud. 4's your job is to cross off items that have already been shared so that your 3 doesn't share an item twice. Okay? So.
Whenever you hear something that's on our list, you can let us know.
All right, Griffin, we're going to start with you. What do you remember about what makes a good argumentative essay?
A refutation.
A refutation. Very nice. Thank you. Danny? And what else did we call a thesis? We kind of used 2 names for it. Claim. Okay? Shh. Let's be quiet while others are sharing. All right? Great. Evidence? Absolutely. Orion?
Having a hook.
Thank you. Okay, then you can sit down, Orion. Megan? Can I get talking to stop, please? A counterclaim? Danny?
Analysis.
Very nice. What do you got, Robbie?
Quotes.
Yes. Great. Catherine?
Restating a thesis and a conclusion.
Okay, thank you.
Diction.
Diction. Okay, actually, you know what? Diction's going to go over here. Okay. Some things that I remember that weren't stated is we talked about, call it out when you think you know what I'm spelling. Anecdotal evidence. Or
Statistical evidence, yeah.
there you go. Very, very nice. Okay. All of those things are what? What goes into an argument, or like we're just actually going to simplify it. What you write. You write your refutation, you write your thesis and claim, you write your evidence, you write your hook. That's what goes into the paper. Now I want you to imagine some of the famous speech writers of our time. Like the first that comes to mind for me is Martin Luther King Jr. And we think about some of those quotes that stick with us, like the one that was in the play that we watched a couple weeks ago, where it's an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. He has such a way with language to make it memorable. And I want you to imagine if he were to get up and give a speech that was kind of like the one that's up there, where he has his thesis. I believe that all people should have equality. The first reason I think this is blank. For example, in Of Mice and Men it says, okay, that obviously would not be a good speech. And so this is the last time I'm going to have you do this today. In your table groups, I want you to talk about what would go into a speech that would not necessarily be listed on the board so far. So not necessarily like what, let me restate that. Not what goes into it, but how would you then turn that into a speech? What would a good speech have that an argumentative essay wouldn't? And an example might be like Chance gave diction, really paying attention to the word choice that you're using. See if you can come up with a couple more.
Tone for sure. Probably, I don't know, the way it's delivered, like technically.
Yes.
Like usually what I'm talking yeah.
Yes.
What's it called when you talk like da-da-da, is that prose? Like when you talk in a like specific...
When you talk like a typewriter.
No,
Are you talking about like parallel structure?
no, like in Shakespeare, how it's like 10 syllables, 10 syllables.
Iambic pentameter? Like, so you have a meter to your writing?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I literally could not believe it. Oh no,
All right, 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3. I'm just going to take volunteers on this one. So what are some things you talked about that take a argumentative essay and turn it into a speech that would sound good on the ears? Yes.
Emotion.
Okay, so more emotion. Yes.
Vocal inflection.
Okay. Shh, Ron.
The projectile of your voice.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. Can I say no?
Yes.
Proper posture.
Okay. Let me kind of redirect us. Let's talk about just the writing of the speech, not necessarily when you get up to say it, but when you write the speech. What would go into the writing of the speech?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you got one?
Punctuations.
Okay, so your grammar and maybe creative punctuation. Okay.
The meter.
Okay. So having a meter or a rhythm. Jenny? Tone. What else would we add?
I just got a question.
Yes.
What does the meter mean?
Meter is kind of the da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. It's like, did you read Romeo and Juliet?
Yes.
So it's written in iambic pentameter, ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. And you wouldn't necessarily do a whole speech like that, but having kind of a cadence to your speech, a rhythm to it, like a song almost. Okay. Well, let me add a couple to this list. You could think about your syntax, which is your sentence structure. You could think about adding in some literary devices, things like alliteration, anaphora, or chiasmus, which we will go over this unit.
What's anaphora?
We will go over that this unit. You could talk about adding in, someone came up with this yesterday during second period. Oh, wait. Somebody said this yesterday in second period, but they talked about connecting with the audience. And so maybe, telling a joke that would be appropriate for your audience, some sort of connection. That would be a way to turn it into a persuasive speech. So here's what I want you to notice. This is the big takeaway. The left-hand column is what you write. The right-hand column is how you write it. This is rhetoric. It's like perfect timing. That is rhetoric. The first column is what you write. The second column is how you write it, and that's what we're talking about with rhetoric. And this is where our focal point is going to be for this unit, because we've already done all this, so we'll review it and we'll move on. But this unit's going to be about learning how to have more style in your writing, how to use literary devices like alliteration, anaphora, chiasmus, how to play around with your syntax, how to be purposeful with your diction. So go ahead and go back to your CCD chart. And what I'd like you to do is write this final definition in it. Rhetoric is the art of using language to persuade. The art of using language to persuade. And someone in third period yesterday said this so well that I think it's worth writing down. He called it the pizzazz. It's what makes your writing sound interesting. It's not necessarily what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. What I'd like you to do underneath your definition, because some of you think kind of this way, is I want you to draw a quick visual of what that means so that it helps you remember. I didn't draw it because it's on the screen, but I drew like a little hypnosis item because for me, when I think of rhetoric, I think of persuading and kind of almost putting somebody in a daze because the art of my language is so effective. Why don't you just draw a little sketch, a little stick figure sketch, whatever you can think of. What's that?
Cool dragon.
What does it mean?
I don't know. I just think it would be cool.
Okay.
We got a grind.
What do you think, Julia?
Have a dual make.
I think I'm gonna draw like somebody.
Hey, I don't have
Okay.
a tournament on Saturday, so I can pass that.
Larry just said frosted.
I want to all tell them tomorrow.
Why did you draw that?
It's a hypnosis. It's a
Oh, like one of those pendulum? Yeah. Yeah.
I did it one day when we went out.
Probably
When I was like,
All right. We are going to come back to the last column tomorrow. That's going to be our warm-up tomorrow, is seeing if we remember the word enough to use it in a sentence. But what I want to just talk about briefly before we kind of close things up for today is I think that this is a really important skill for today's society. Not only being able to use rhetoric, being able to use pizzazz and the art of language, as we're writing, but also to be able to recognize it. Because I think, when I was thinking about preparing this lesson, I was thinking about the word rhetoric, and for some reason I have a negative connotation, which means a negative feeling about that word. And I think it's because often we're talking these days about people who have a lot of rhetoric, but not a lot of content underneath. So people who make things sound really good, but maybe they're not actually saying a whole lot. When rhetoric and strong content are paired, it makes for a really powerful pairing. But you can't have one without the other. If all you have is rhetoric, but you have no content, you're not really saying anything. And so being able to identify and analyze somebody's rhetoric helps us kind of see past that and look into what they're actually saying, the content of what they're saying, which is a really important skill. So again, tomorrow our warm-up is going to be to see if we can use it in a sentence. So if you want to be thinking about that a little bit, you can. But I do have an exit ticket for you that I want some feedback on. So let me go ahead and pass that out.
Exit ticket?
What's kind of cool? It's kind of creepy to me, but I'm glad you think it's cool. You're listening.
Back at 1:30. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. When we think back to our opening slide, that's not it. Here it is. Hold on one second. There were 3 goals we had today. The first was to practice with the 5 strategies for sentence combining. The second was to understanding the learning target of the unit. And the third was to understand the word rhetoric. I want you to give yourself a score 1 through 5 for each of those. Explain your score. And then this would be a great opportunity for you to ask questions because I'll respond to each of these personally. So if you're not really sure about how to use strategy 3 for combining sentences, ask me about that. If you have some confusion about what rhetoric is, this would be a great time for you to ask me about that as well. Okay, let me get you one. I'm out of pencils, but there's one.
Should we just leave this on our desk? Or do we give them?
We're going to turn them in the back in just a second.
Listen, do you know what we're doing in class next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah. Am I gonna need to bring anything specific, like my notebook or my computer or anything?
Next Wednesday will involve your computer.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that's the day Ryan and I have to leave early.
Oh, right.
For the choir thing.
Yeah, computer. So, okay, awesome. When you've finished filling out your exit ticket, you can turn it in the back and then await further directions.
Oh.
Jen, don't tell me anything. Luke, why did you call me? I needed a board. You woke me up. I was slumbering. Dude, yeah. I was sleeping till 5. You woke me up. I was like, really? This
Naylor, do you have scissors? I have this tag in the back of my shirt.
I do. Let me get them for you in just a second.
I zip on almost every class. Like when I'm on the sideline.
You're welcome, Ron.
Yeah. I was like 7 o'clock, but I didn't know what to make for it. Huh? Oh, really?
Maybe we'll take one.
Mine has 1.5 million views.
Yeah.
I made it last night.
Let me see.
And then you can pack up your stuff, but then stay where you are, because I'm going to just talk to you about what's coming next. Okay, so at this point, you now have an understanding of kind of where our learning focus is going to be on how to add rhetoric into our writing. You know kind of what the assessment's going to look like. You're going to be writing and delivering a persuasive speech. Tomorrow, our focus is going to be on really looking at that assessment. So I'm going to give you the prompt. We're gonna go over the prompt together. We're gonna make a graphic organizer with it so we can really see what's going to be expected of us. And we'll take a look at kind of some of the key terms of the unit and what terms do we already know and what terms do we still need to learn. So again, you have a really clear idea before we dive in. So that is what I have for you today, unless there's any questions or comments before we're done.